Hello, everyone. I'm live. She's alive. She's alive. Sherry Westerson here. I see some people have come. That's good. Thank you. You probably got notices that we were live at 2:30, which we were, because I wasn't sure this is gonna work. So I needed to have, make sure I could do backup if I needed to. So that's why. But Crispin Guest was holding my place for me. So this is something that someone made for me. Look at it. Even has a little dagger. That's adorable. There was a time you could buy this. I don't know if they're still available. I'll have to ask her. And thank you for coming. And I hope you can hear me. Can someone tell me if you hear me? Can you hear me? I hope you can. Tell me on the little chat there if you can hear me or not. Can you hear me? Waiting for replies. This is gonna be different for me. Oh, good. Okay. All right. Because I can project. I could probably be loud enough for you to hear me at home. But thank you for coming today. This is gonna be new for me, new for you. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see if we can get an hour out of this show. I don't know, but we will do our best. And I'm gonna be doing things and then looking at your chat and seeing if my glasses will read it or not. And that's great. Okay. Because we have things to do. We have to talk about this thing, that book. We have things to give away. I have these cool little Jelly Belly tins. See? Very cool. And we have these guys, of course. Little jousting. So we will give those away. I don't know quite how I'm going to do that yet, but it just might be that I will, I don't know. I'll tell you when it's time. How about that? Let's think about that. So I can't, it's not giving me a count of how many people, if I don't see this. But anyway, this was very easy, by the way. YouTube. When I was researching this, I was finding out online that I had to download a different apps, software to do this. That was baloney. YouTube seems to have this all figured out, unless they just cut us off at an hour, which I don't think they will, because I have a little button that says end stream. So, oh, okay, 13 people are here. All right, that's good. Well, let's get started. I have questions. This is from the discussion page. I have discussion guides for all the books, all the Crispin books on my website. So that's something you can check out. So I'm just going to start asking these questions, and you can type your answer, and ask me more questions. I will keep an eye out on that thing, and you can ask more questions, because more questions, more time. You don't have to look at me that way. All right, so Sword of Shadows. This book is number 13. Number 13. Number 14 is already in the can, and if you might have heard that in September, Severin House is releasing the ebook first. So good for them, because I've been saying, here we are in the time of COVID, release the darn thing so people can at least get the ebook. So there'll be that. So a little fortification here. It's iced tea. And I'm going to begin. I'm going to start asking questions here. So number one, Crispin has only ventured out of London 3 times in his adventures in Troubled Bones, There was a trip to Canterbury, integral to the entire plot of The Missing Bones of St. Thomas Becket. And in Season of Blood, when he and Jack take a side trip to the plot to venture to Hales Abbey near Winchcombe to return a relic and find a killer. And of course, this time around, we carry the story to Tintagel in Cornwall. How do you feel about these various ventures, or would you have preferred that our heroes stay in London? Now, my take on this, of course, is that I like to shake it up a bit. You know, he's in London all the time, so let's shake it up a bit. Let's take a little side trip somewhere. Let's take a field trip, because London becomes such a character that I think it's kind of important that you feel good about London, about his place there. But I think it does help sort of shake up the story, give it a different perspective when he's somewhere else, almost a fish out of water, because he's very good about being in London. And Heidi, hello Heidi, you say, I think it's fun to go to other places. Nice change of pace. I think so. Dragon Wick, or is it Dragon Wicca? I like the side adventures, so that's good, because you have no choice. It's not a democracy. What I write, I'm writing what I want. But I like going to other places because, again, that gives you someplace else to research. I didn't know anything about Tintagel. It was very interesting, and we'll get into that a little later. I love the London characters, but I do appreciate that sometimes he doesn't have home court advantage. Exactly. Yeah, he's a fish out of water. He doesn't always know what's going on in these places, especially in this book. I like the out-of-town adventures. Thank you, Jody. Yep, just along for the ride. That's right. I'm going to write what I want. But I think this is, let's see. Yeah, this is the last time he goes out of town. Everything else is converging on London and the stories there. So, anything else on that? Anybody got any ideas about that? About places maybe you wished he'd gone? I did have an idea about going to France one time. And then you would have known, well, you found out in this book that Crispin has the mal de mer. He has seasickness. So he doesn't like going on boats. So that would have been interesting. But no, we just ran out of time for that. All right, I'm going on to number 2. Anybody has anything else? All right. Okay. Sometimes characters return to the plot, whom we have met in previous books. Cat Pike was a particular favorite of mine from Season of Blood, and I wanted to bring her back before the series was over. How did you feel about her interaction with Crispin and the question he asked? We got some leftover answers from the last bit. Expanding your guy's world would always be a good thing, yes. Oh, it's Regina. Hi, Regina. Now you got to plug your ears or plug your eyes, Regina, for this next question here. How did we all feel about Cat Pike's interaction with Crispin this time and the question he asked? And you know, I thought long and hard about that one. You might just meet this lady love, yes. Cat Pike was fun, and I even talked to my agent about a spin-off of her, but he didn't find that to be a go for him. So. But you know, a medieval thief and a woman, that could have been fun. And I did enjoy writing her in Season of Blood. Season of Blood was fun too because we got to bring Sheriff Winchcombe back, ex-Sheriff Winchcombe. into his hometown. And then Cat was in there. And, of course, Jesus' blood is always a really great relic, as relics go. There are some strange relics out there. Any comments on that? Everybody still there? Hello? Should I bring Chris Bear back? The question he asked her. We got nothing. He seems so vulnerable right now. I'm a goofy romantic and want him to go off in the sunset happily ever after. I think a female in medieval times would be really interesting, yes. It would be. It would be if it had gone, but I don't think it's going to go. Crispin Guest, yes. Adorable. It was such a nice surprise. And she made that for me. It's, it's been tough trying to figure out another medieval series, and so I do have one in mind, but it's mostly paranormal, so and a mystery. But if you like adding those things, I know you're not caught up on the books right now, Regina. Yeah, you can't comment on that one. It's a good scene. I'm sure people were surprised when they got to that point. Yes. Okay. Jody, at first I was kind of like sad-faced when we saw her in this book, but I really enjoyed watching her character evolve and redeem herself. Yes. I do like to redeem my bad guys, unless they're really, really bad and then they get their comeuppance, not redemption. Because some people just need comeuppance. You know what I mean? I noticed you could see my messy wall behind there. This is the room where it happens. And it's not pretty. That's okay. Those are all the steampunk ducks back there. I agree. What do you agree about Heidi? What do you agree? Yes, it is. That is my wall of books. So you want to buy them? There they are. I kept a good stock in hand, in case I had to do events. Well, 2020 told me otherwise. So anyway, 13, I think. I'm not sure. I know what that 15. How old is Crispin now? Well, the first book he started 30, so he's about 40. Couple of books for the same year. I think he's like 42 or something. I have to look that up. Hi, Tara. I see you. Yeah, poor Crispin. And he's old. 42, 45 in medieval, in dog years, in medieval years. That's old. You really do start life. You started as a knight at 18, You're on a go. I was commenting on people needing comeuppance. Oh, yes, okay. Yes. That was Heidi. Yeah. So 45 is, and he's had a hard, more than 15 years, because he was 7 years exiled when we started in Vale of Lies, the Cup of Blood. So yeah, those are hard years. Yes, the format lags a little. I imagine it does. I lag a lot. That's another story. All right, so shall we move on to 3 then? Question number 3. Jack Tucker is certainly coming into his own as a tracker. Did you feel he was ready to do the job? What do you think? Good old Jack. Jack was not going to be in the rest of the series. He was going to be in the first couple books and then maybe, disappear. But my editor said, "So Jack's going to be in the next book, isn't he?" I said, "Yes. Why, yes, he is. He's going to continue in this series." And because I was just going by the whole trope of a hard-boiled detective being alone, except for maybe his girl Friday. But Jack turned into a really good foil for Crispin. Someone to bounce ideas off of, someone to stand in for the reader. When we're saying, what's going on, Jack gets to say that for us. And he mellows Crispin too. So it was excellent to have him do that because, I don't think anybody really wanted to read about a whiny kind of sad sack for the next 12, 14 books. So yeah, no wonder he was over the sword fight. I'm not sure. I don't know if that's commenting on Jody. He's a good sidekick. He is. He was good for lots of things. Explaining kind of life in the Middle Ages. Crispin taught him to read and write, which was kind of unusual for his position, but since he had no one else to talk to, might as well, right? So, and he was just a servant at first, and then later became an apprentice because Crispin at this point was figuring, well, this is going to be the rest of my life. I might as well have someone who comes after me to do this job. So let me arm him with all that he needs to know. Reading and writing, that's going to put him at a different level. Once I'm dead and he's doing whatever he has to do, at least he could get some kind of job. He could read and write. So, yes, good sidekick. Everyone needs a friend they can rely on for help. Exactly. And how many times has Jack saved his life? So they do that back and forth. So that always worked that way too. Is story plot issues. I'm glad I kept Jack. I really enjoy watching that relationship and how it continues to grow with every new book. Yeah, I did too. So, and I had planned for Jack to get married and have children. And so I was looking forward to that. He had to be old enough, just old enough in medieval years to do that. And because he was pretty young, I think he was, what was he? He might have been just 17 or something, I think. He has the smarts, but doesn't seem to have physicality of Crispin. Well, he does have the physicality. He's certainly strong. He's tall and rangy. He can do the job. And he can scramble up over roofs. We saw him do that. So he can do it. He's not as polished. He would of course be different at it than Crispin. So, but I think he would be successful. He might get beaten up more because he didn't have any nobility in his background, but he does have the smarts. He's learned a lot, which is good. Oh yeah, okay. Jody was commenting on Crispin's age. The sword fight in the book kicked his butt this time, and yeah, yeah, it did. So, and that's been fun too. Crispin is aging, so I got write that stuff. He's got aches and pains. He can't run and chase people anymore like he used to, and so he has Jack do that. Excuse me, and you'll see that next book. He's like, nope, can't do that anymore. I'm letting Jack do it. Okay, so I think it's time to do a giveaway. What do you think? I think that I'm going to have you email me I'm going to have you email me because it's going to be faster without this lag. So I'm writing down, although you should be able to figure this out by now. So email me to win the candy. Win the candy. And I will randomly pick you for that. Say it's for the candy. And email to jerrywesterson@gmail.com. All you have to do is remember my name, jerrywesterson@gmail.com. For the candy. Do that now. Do it now. I have 2 of these to give away, so let's do that. Okay? And I'll check it out. Commenting Crispin's okay. Oh, I like the idea of a spin-off. Well, I kind of liked it too, but my agent didn't. That's the way it goes. And I wasn't crazy about going that route. I wanted to kind of get out of those guys. So that's where I went. I may or may not have write that Tudor era one. Just can't seem to get into it. So that's hanging in the balance. Who knows? So let's go to number 4. How did you feel about Excalibur? And not the casino. This is the sword. Are you disappointed when the MacGuffin isn't a religious relic? Now remember, I don't always do a religious relic. I tried to do most of them that way, but not all of them. In Demon's Parchment, it was a portion of the Kabbalah and parchments. Yeah. Shadow of the Alchemist, it was the Philosopher's Stone, which was really fun. Because I got to take characters that J.K. Rowling used and do the real guy. And Silence of Stones, it was the Stone of Scone that's under the coronation chair. That's not really a relic, but it's a venerated object, so I like to call it. Jody says Jack is more wily, which makes him a good offset for Crispin. Yes, yes it does. Yes it does. And different. His whole life was different from Crispin's, so. And I really like how they are so close that they just don't really have a servant master vibe anymore. I mean, it just doesn't. Crispin kind of growls about the fact that you really are pretty insolent. It's like yeah. Talk to the gauntlet because the apprentice ain't listening. So and they love each other. He's basically Crispin's son, except for his real son. So there's that. Well lived in space. So I started the series so that Crispin would be looking for the Maltese Falcon every time, more or less, something like that, something that propelled the plot. Didn't necessarily have to be the center of the plot. Sometimes they are. Sometimes there's something they're over here tangential to the plot. Because it was very repetitive. It was funny. There was some reviews I read on Amazon, and the reviewer said, "Another relic," as if that's not the whole basis of the series. It's like, why didn't you figure that out by now? Okay, so what do you think? Was Excalibur enough to really go after, to find? Did it make it exciting? I think it did. A lot of people love the Arthurian legends, and I do too. And when researching them for this book, you discover that there are so many of these And in Crispin's day, he really had to. These were poems, these were stories, but in Crispin's day, of course, they were histories. This is what they thought was absolutely true. Even some of the mystical stuff, Excalibur and Merlin and all these characters that we would naturally go, yeah, okay, that's somebody's just exaggerating, making a story interesting. But they thought this is kind of real. So Arthur was real, even though they couldn't quite place him in the line of succession. But yeah, I mean that's part of the fun of this kind of stuff. Excalibur is an excellent idea. Kind of gives Crispin something different to chew on. Exactly. We love Excalibur. Of course, it's a sword. And for a long time, Crispin didn't have a sword. And that, very Freudian there. Have a sword. He was emasculated, right? But so the Sword of Swords is very important. Personally, I don't see Excalibur as a religious relic. Well, it isn't. More of a pagan object. Yes, exactly. It's a venerated object, something of legends, of lore. So yes, that's but it's something that was fascinating, including all the characters in the book are Carantok Teague. I love that name. I like the progression over the time of the books. I enjoyed watching both mature, the characters. Thank you. I really like the mystery of religion that goes with finding relics, but Excalibur was interesting, yes. Yes, religion is full of mysteries and mysterious objects. And of course, relics. And interestingly enough, of course, we met the Lollards before. We met them in Troubled Bones the first time. And their philosophy was that the relics are nonsense. They shouldn't be not worshipped, but venerated as they are, and they wanted them gone. And in fact, Henry VIII decided he was going to be the head of the church in England. He got rid of all the relics that he used to venerate. So he got rid of them, and so a lot of those things are missing, like Beckett's bones, all gone, disappeared somewhere. I love the idea of any relics. Didn't originally make the swords connection things. Okay, there you go. It's always something they're looking for. So, yeah, Crispin has to find those guys. He has to find those things, and whether the people decide they want them or not. And spoiler alert: Crispin burns Veil of Lies, so because he doesn't think anybody should have it. So there. Okay, now here comes a little controversial question. What was your feeling about the Druid settlement? Fairly pagan village in the midst of Christian Britain. Now, some people had a hard time with that, I saw in some reviews, but I have a counter to that. So I'm hoping that you guys can go ahead and make your own statements about that. Another thing I got to research that I kind of had wanted to delve into. It's a little offbeat to have that of a real Druid pagan village in the Christian era. However, if you make really hoping Crispin was going to keep the sword, but I understood why he couldn't. Of course not. Of course he couldn't. If you take a look, and I hope you do, at some of the customs and traditions in England, Britain, they have some whoppers. They really have some really weird and they're pagan past. And they try to kind of Christianize some of them, but it doesn't always work. You know, rolling cheeses down hills and chasing after them, not killing yourself. Whoever catches the cheese, gets to keep this grass-filled big wheel of cheese. There's a lot of bread. There's a lot of bread traditions in town that they sort of Christianized because the bread, the harvest, llamas, becomes Christian. The first wheat, the first harvest, you make bread out of the first harvest of wheat, and you present that to the church. So now that's becoming communion bread, or the idea of communion bread. But these are old pagan Celtic traditions from long past, and there is a little bit, especially in these villages way out in the willy wax, that don't not always strictly Christian, because those pagan practices sneak in. I always think of Stonehenge when I hear Druids. I don't think of Druids when I hear Stonehenge, because they had nothing to do with it. A lot of what we know of Druids was a lot of stuff made up in the early 20th century, because there was a resurgence of pagan and magic and stuff like that that trundled along with seances and that kind of stuff. So, because Druids didn't write anything down, all we know about them was from Julius Caesar when he wrote them down and looked at these people in Celtic Britain. So there's, the practices kind of made up, and there's a few things in there, but don't take it all for don't take it all 100% as 100%, because nobody knows. Nobody knows. I don't know much about Druids. Well, I didn't either, and I tried my best to find out about them. And as I said, sifting the new stuff from the old stuff was kind of tough. But I just went to my Julius Caesar. I didn't have any problems with the pagan village. It's something different, and it's real traditions, even if you don't see them now. Okay. Druids have a lot to do with Stonehenge now. Yes, they do. But that sort of thing would be anachronistic in your boy's time. Yes, indeed it would. That stuff. But and these little villages out there, way out there, in Cornwall and distant spots in England that were very hard to get to, on some of the islands too, probably did a lot of having their Christian and pagan practices together, and did a lot of melding of those ideas. And people do it now. There's, Santeria and things like that is old pagan and voodoo traditions mixed with Catholicism. So there's a lot of that. I got to research that too, because for the Moonriser series, I have voodoo practitioners. So the stuff I get to research is fun. So email again to win a night duck. JerryWesterson.com. JerryWesterson at gmail.com. Even I don't know it. I have to write it down. So get yourself a night duck. So just keep emailing for that. Make sure you say in your subject line, candy, tin, or duck. And I have 3 different kinds of ducks. Okay? So go for it. All right. We kind of answered this, but we can go more in depth. Let me read some things if I missed anything. There were little pagan villages in ancient times, and though they may have had a church, still performed in the old ways. Yes, many did, and no one ever bother them, because especially if you had your priest come from your village close to it, they'd get it. And there's no use in calling in Rome, or in this case Canterbury, and bringing down hell on your own people. That would be stupid. So that would be cross purposes to your making a living as a priest there. So, how do you feel about Jack's adult character? Now he's an old married man now, and his wife is constantly popping out the babies. That was sort of my plan. I thought, okay, Jack's gonna get married. He's been chaste all this time, and she is just gonna be pregnant every time we see her. So that was my my plan on that. And he's got all these kids, and I thought it was very touching that he named the first one Crispin, and that he had all, and the kids adore Crispin, and he has just fallen for them, and he's just become like, he doesn't even know what he is to these kids. He figures he's like some uncle that they live with, you know, because he's not acting like master and servants anymore, barely. So, and what else? What do you do? He's so close to these people, physically and emotionally. He's not going to start throwing his weight around, even if they wanted to. So Jack is, I think he's become a fine young man. Yes, and interesting. It's fun to write him because, he gets to be he's a little freer with his life, because he's not so set on all the etiquette and the proper, all that stuff that Crispin had to get drilled into him. He doesn't have to worry about that. So, I think Jack has become a great character. And I wouldn't know what we'd have done without him. I hope you're typing away. Remember, if you have questions, type them there. At least it's there on my computer. And by the way, they were really getting better with their covers. I'm pleased with. Let's see if I can get the reflection off there. This is a good one. The next one, Spiteful Bones, is a really good one. It's got a skeleton on it. I like skeletons. Jack is a great son to Crispin, yes. Will we be seeing Crispin's biological son in the future? Oh, yes, you see him in every book. And he's the next book, Spiteful Bones. He is helping to solve the crime. He gets to sort of tags along. So that's fun. And getting Crispin's son in there was something I planned a long time ago too, and couldn't wait to finally have him old enough to get in his own book. So, going into the family business. Well, some might. Keeps talking about it, but I think he realizes that he's better off, wealthier, when he stays in his stepfather's business. But it was fun to bring him in The Deepest Grave. That's when we first see Crispin's son. And poor woman, yes. She's always pregnant. And lives! She lives! And the kids live. Because there's just so much sadness. I just can't. I couldn't do that. Couldn't do that one. But, there were women that just did pop them out. They didn't die. Most of their children lived, so And that happened in obviously the wealthier, noble families because you needed that. You needed heirs. You needed those who could protect your holdings and all of that stuff. If you had girl children, well, then you knew you can marry them off to somebody else and get another alliance together. So, but you obviously wanted sons, as Henry VIII did. And the cat is crying outside the door here. Was it unusual for women to have that many kids in those days? Yeah. They didn't always live, like I said. But oh my gosh, there's it might have been even Lancaster that they name the kid dies, the next kid's born, they give him that name too. Instead of you keep it. But yeah, that's your job, really. Pop out those kids when you're well born and when you're not as well born, because you need them to work in whatever capacity. If you had a farm, you needed them to be farmhands. When you were in the city and you had some kind of shop, you needed them to work there. So it was a thing. Be fruitful and multiply too. No birth control other than breastfeeding. Well, breastfeeding doesn't always work. And there was all kinds of attempts at birth control, because there was no prohibition against it in those days. And there were abortions. There was also ways to have abortions, making certain potions and herbs. I'm actually dealing with that in the last book. So there was that. There was a lot of controversy about the brooch found with Roger. Jody says, was that part of the plot confusion? Everyone had a claim to that brooch. A little bit, yeah. To broach that subject. And it was, a little bit of comedy there. That she had it, everybody had it. So all the places she used it. Cat Pike, that is. Catherine Pike. Be sure you are emailing about these guys. And you will hear if you won. I'm not going to stop now, but you will hear. This is one of the questions I always have, because I'm never sure, was the mystery mystifying enough? I always think everybody knows who did it right away. So that's why I try to convolute the plot so much that you're like, what? What is going on? I don't even know who's dead anymore. So I wanted to make sure that was... I mean, I like to put so many things in there that it almost doesn't matter if you figured it out right away. There's still plenty of other things to do and figure out. Character development. I had another... I'm talking about crappy reviews, so don't write these, okay? About my books. Somebody said, they're talking so much about the characters, so I just want to get to the mystery. Well, my books are not for you, because I like... The character is king for me. Because if you don't like spending 300 pages with these characters, then what good is the mystery? So I like to give you lots of things to go on, to keep you busy. True, not in the modern sense, though. Birth control, probably? You had no idea about that, I guess? I think we're still on that other question. I didn't figure it out until the end. Thank you. You're my friend, Davis. I never know who did it until the end. Deborah, yes. You like falling in love with the characters, exactly. I mean, yeah, who's going to keep following them for 15 books? You don't like them. So that's why I love how we write mysteries now. They're not Hercule Poirot or Miss Marple that never change throughout any of the books. Now you have to write a character that grows and becomes more than he was, or less. I mean, maybe the whole stuff is destroying them. You don't want, that's a different kind of book. But that's the kind of book you write now is these characters who have backstory, who have, you want to believe they have a life before you open the book and after you've closed the cover, that they're still living and doing things. I mean, I don't know that I believe that for Miss Marple. I don't know that she's that brought to life. Is just the instrument to tell the mystery. So and sometimes that's okay too, But I like to have a little meat. I like to know who these characters are. We give up our friends quicker than 15 books. Yeah. I didn't care how much about whodunit. For me, it's always about the character and the characters. Yes. I like whodunits. Whodunits have their place. They do. We like them, obviously. But I sure like my characters. Yes, he's going through time too and curious about senior knights. Well, they probably took themselves out of the fighting, and also no one was going to call them anymore except as advisors, because when you're 50 and that makes you really old, and 60, 70, because people did live that long, the nobility, because they better nutrition, better health. But yeah, I mean, they're not going to be able to swing a sword for hours in a battle anymore. But they're the guys on the hill, on their horses, strategizing. Yes, it's during their time too. Senior nights. I always enjoy what happens to the relics. What happens to the relics? The ones that are real and the ones that I've made. So, because I have made some up, but I like to keep them real too, because it's fascinating to me how they've kept them and preserved them. One of my favorite things is the uncorruptibles, the incorruptibles. These are the bodies of saints who they're like Snow White in glass coffins, and they don't corrupt, they don't decay. Well, that's not quite true. They are like Saint Bernadette has been preserved in wax to make her less corruptible, and some things that have been replaced that have corrupted with wax, so not so incorruptible. Characters are very important. This one was good. I was right to the end waiting to see who done it. Relics are still fascinating. They are. They really are. All right, let's get to number 8. How did you feel about treasure hunting as presented? Again, every time I get a crazy idea, I have to go research it to see if it's possible. And yes, there were treasure hunters. It wasn't legal, but I'm sure, like Carantok Teague, they got around the law a little by offering enough to the coroner, who was supposed to be in charge of these things, as a bribe, that they were able to go along and take a few things here and there. Because just like today in Britain, the stuff comes out of the ground. Roman coins show up, and you've plowed that field a million times, right? But this time, that little box of gold made its way up through the ground, and you found it. People buried stuff when there was the bad guys coming. when the battle was coming near your door, you buried your stuff so that even if they burned your house down, you can come back later and dig up your treasure. And some people died before they could do that, and they've been doing that since Roman times. So, well, before Roman times. And then, of course, burial mounds. Everybody kind of stayed away from them because they thought they were fairy mounds, and something bad would happen. And there's always somebody, right, who will dig in a mound, in a burial thing, and steal stuff. So they've been lucky. Archaeologists have been lucky to find things still there. Think about Egyptian tombs. All kinds of curses on those things, but thieves still got in and took a lot of stuff. That's why King Tut's tomb was so amazing, because no one had gotten to it. And it was as they all were, but the other ones were robbed. So that was neat. Some saints have so many relics they must have looked bizarre. 20 fingers, etc. Well, for the most part, no. And I mean, the same old saw about, if you put all the pieces of the true cross together, it would be a billion, But that's not true, because the pieces were splinters. I mean, you get like a little tiny splinter of wood in a little reliquary. So it's not like chunks of, However, when you come up with more than 3 nails, that's a problem. Or more than one foreskin of Jesus, that's a problem too, and a whole other story. Let's see. The Marple and HP books were very dated. The BBC shows were better. Yeah, well, I agree. I like the two newer Miss Marples. Even though they did some stories that weren't Miss Marple books. So, and they gave her a backstory, which Agatha Christie did not. So, see, everybody has to have a backstory. Imagine how much stuff is still buried. Oh, yes. Oh, my God. I've said this before. I would love to rent some house in London and then just dig up the backyard. I mean, just for pot shards and the trash they threw away. It would be so interesting to do that. And I would love to go mudlarking. I don't know if you ever follow those people. I follow some on Instagram. Mudlarkers are in London. I guess they're only in London. And they get to go along the Thames when the tide goes out in the mud. And you can find things. You find all kinds of things. You can find rings. Find a lot of buckles from shoes. A lot of this from the 1600s, 1700s. Pipes, clay pipes for smoking, and just all kinds of things. And sometimes you find older things that end up in the Thames. So that would just be so fun to find something like that. I mean, I had to buy. Here's my real medievalia. This, you can't see this. Can you see this? This is a penny. This is a penny. It's very, it's very thin silver. You can barely see that right there. It's from the 14th century. And from about 1354 to 61, and Edward III. There's Edward III on the front, and on the back is a cross. Can't see it though. And it's, when I bought this, I just thought it was so cool to think about the last guy to spend it, in the 14th century. What did he buy with it? He could have bought some bread. He could have bought, I don't know, anything. And that's like a relic to me of whoever touched something like that in the past and what they used it for. That's cool for me. I like treasure stories. Yes, I follow the mudlarkers too. Yeah, that's cool. Bring on the backhoe and metal detectors. Yes. Yeah. I'd love to find that stuff. I think treasure hunting is exciting no matter the time period. I loved learning about the story behind the treasure and how it got there. And, it was very interesting. The treasure hunting in England was outlawed, but there were exceptions if you didn't find anything in a church or a burial, you didn't do that. And if you did find something, you were supposed to turn it in because it all belongs to the king, right? But you got to know that people did not do that. Especially if they're finding coins or something, Roman coins. If it's gold or silver, it's still good. Still buy stuff at the shops and the markets. Yeah. So it was fun finding out about Carantok Teague. So number 9, we're getting near the end here. The horses put Crispin and Jack on a different financial and social footing back home in London. Discuss such social issues. Well, yeah, a horse. The whole idea of a horse. Think about when you're on a horse riding through London. Streets are narrow, designed for horses and some carts. Look, imagine how high, physically high, that puts you. You're above the crowd. You're looking down at people, literally. So the whole idea of owning a horse was such a social leap for most people. That wasn't just a draft horse or a work horse. This is, a horse, a utilitarian horse for riding. Now, when Crispin was a knight, he had a war horse. He had a regular horse for riding, usually called a palfrey. He had horses to carry baggage. He had horses for his squire. Yeah, I never even mentioned Crispin's squire before. That's something I should probably throw that in somewhere. So it's expensive being a knight. It's expensive being a lord. You had to have all these horses. You had to board them. You had to feed them. You had to hire somebody to take care of them. Because a knight's not going to go out to the barn and brush them down. That's not happening. So to have the horse and to have 2. Technically, they belong both to Crispin, but I'm sure Crispin said, "Well, that's Jack's horse," So Jack could never even imagine owning a horse. Just as he couldn't even imagine having a sword. You had to have a certain level of income to even own a sword. And they wanted you to have things like swords because in case you were invaded, you had to fight the enemy on the streets. That's why there was a law that everybody had to be an archer, had to practice every Sunday their archery. So that was that. Remember that from Serpent on Thorns? That was in there. So having a horse was probably a knight looks so majestic on a horse. Knights need a horse. Horses are expensive, especially nowadays. Well, not just nowadays; they always were. Always expensive. They eat a lot. They eat a lot. So they had enough room in these new lodgings. Remember, these are new lodgings because he used to live above the tinker shop all those years ago. So I had to give him new lodgings so he could spread out a little bit and have more rooms, more courtyard, and things like that. So he's got the horses, and that was important to him as well as Jack. It's going to be just outlandish for him to own a horse. So that was a special thing. I wanted to do that for him. Poor Crispin, he's been through so much. I don't know if you've ever read on my website. You should take a look at it. Author meets character. If you look in the Crispin book section, the series section, you'll see, do you know about Crispin? And there's some things to click. And there's that little, it was a blog post I wrote a long time ago. So you can look at that. Number 10, our last little question here. Crispin began the series as rather sour, grim, and frankly drunk. With with all the books behind him, how do you feel about his slow progression? I know how I feel. I was feeling that he was getting a little too maudlin for people to like anymore. So, I mean, he had to start that way. Not only was it sort of the hard-boiled detective kind of trope, but he lost a lot. He everything that defined who he was, and I didn't think that he was gonna be cheerful about it. So, um, horses were associated with class. That's right, social standing. I love that he's growing happier with his lot in life. Me too. Me too. Um, and it's mostly Jack that did that for him. That said, you know what? I'm so happy with everything I got, and I'm happy to be here with you. And I think it finally sunk into Crispin that why not give up being so grim about it, and Jack enjoys his life. He enjoys Jack. Just get over it. And now that there's these kids in the house, and so I love that they got to keep the horses. I like that too. I like that too. I didn't know that was going to happen by the end of the book, by the way. It just happened, and I thought, oh, okay, I like that. We all deserve a chance to grow into better people. And he did too. It just took him a long time. And it took Jack to do that for him. And, when you're alone like that, and as he was for so long, with even the friends that you knew are shunning you, if they see you in the street, they're just turning away, that's gotta be hard. And so it was good to have Jack sort of temper all that to tell him, you do have friends. You've made friends here, even though they're not your original social class. You've got Gilbert Langton and Eleanor at the Boar's Test. You've got John Reichener, and now Nigelis Cobb Martin, my favorite all-time character name that I invented. Yeah, you've got friends. You've got respect in London now. A different kind of respect, but a respect that maybe is more noble, maybe is more humble. And it's a better kind of respect. I'll really miss Crispin, but I'm excited that you'll be building new worlds. What's next for you? Well, I am emphasizing more the paranormals because I really enjoy writing those. I have another steampunk series that I'm going to be doing as well, besides the one I'm already writing. The one of you can get that right in there. Demon Device is the first one in the steampunk series. And I might be writing another medieval one. Like I said, it's more paranormal mystery, but it's set in the medieval period, about the same time period. It's about a necromancer, and it's a very humorous story. So there's fun stuff in it. It'll be historically accurate, except for the paranormal stuff. And you can enjoy it on that level as well. So we'll see how many of you want to follow along with that. Good friends help you grow. I'm thankful for mine that have made me better. Yes, exactly, Heidi. And I think when we're all surrounded by different kinds of people, a whole diverse group of people, you certainly do grow. And I want my books to be realistic. I want them to be like real people. And you can't just be a tin, a little statue of a person, because they're going to tear you. They're going to tear you down if you're a statue. No, I mean you can't be this this monument that never changes, because you're a human being. They're alive to me anyway. I must have told you this story before. His progress away from alcohol makes sense as his life gets better. I like how Jack stands up for Christopher about his drinking. Exactly. he does put him on the spot for that. So, yes, good friends will help you grow. But when I was researching one time about John of Gaunt, and I'm just reading in the book, and I'm thinking in the back of my mind, well, Crispin will show up in this at some point. And of course, I had a full stop. Go, no, Jerry, he won't. He doesn't exist. But I thought he did, and I had wedged him so deeply into the John of Gaunt story that I expected to find him there. That was a funny moment for me. It was especially hard. Yes, it was especially hard since he felt so guilty about what he'd done. Right, and he couldn't forgive himself for a very long time until he finally sort of did. Because not just the fact that he lost everything. Yeah, he was sorry about that, but he was sorry about how it came about. And it came about because he committed treason. He forswore everything he thought he stood for. And that's what he got for it. So he always felt that he deserved it because, yeah, he broke a vow to the king. So that was an important distinction in his life. It's very funny to see Jack take up the drink at the beginning of the book. Yes, well, he's going to be a good boy, though. He's not going to continue with that. Speaking of friends, will he ever have Christmas at the tavern? Oh yes, he's had Christmas with with all those guys because, they're Isabel Tucker's aunt and uncle, so they all get together now for Christmas. I know there was then the one book. What was it? I think it was in Demon's Parchment where he just couldn't celebrate Christmas, even though he's been asked before. But yes, but there's been some years he's been doing that, so never fear. I'm waiting for the next Moonriser werewolf book. Me too. I gotta write it. But I'm finishing up the sequel to the Demon Device, the Clockwork Gypsy. I don't know if you can see this. This is the postcard I send to libraries. That's got both covers on it. Yeah. So Clockwork Gypsy, that's going to be coming this fall, probably October. Be looking for that. And you love Demon Boys. Thank you, Avis. I liked it too. And the next Moonriser werewolf book will have a vampire in it. Ooh. Said I wasn't going to write vampires, but I decided I will. So there's a vampire in that one. Plus the voodoo ladies are still there. I love the voodoo ladies. The aunties. I tend to like the crusty characters. They're fun to read, but it's good when they grow. Yes. Well, yeah. I mean, I love writing his misery. It was great. And he's not a touchy-feely kind of guy, but yeah, he needed to be grouchy. Still is a little every now and then, but then it's like, this doesn't do any good anymore. So I agree, the crusty ones are fun. Crispin exists for me. Me and my girlfriends fell in love with him. Oh, yes. Yeah, he's a good guy. I love that character. I wish more had happened for him. It would have been nice for everybody all around. Actually, my agent and I are hoping to get we've got the rights, the audiobook rights back from Severn House, my current publisher. They had the rights to do audiobooks. They never did. And so we kept asking for them back because we want to make audiobooks. So first 6 have audiobooks, but I think the licenses have run out of those. I don't know if you can get them anymore. We'd like to do them all again. So I like audiobooks. It's a movie for your mind. I like it. That will be fun to read. The New Medieval, I think it will be fun if I get to it. I've written, all these books that I'm throwing out there, I write like the first 30 pages to see if there's anything in there. And that's kind of fun. It's, there's a little romantic element to it. But I won't get into all that. Yay, audiobooks. Yay, I agree. They're good for doing house cleaning, exercising, things you don't want to do. You can listen to those. You listen to audiobooks all the time. Well, good! Because the Demon Device one should be available very shortly. Moonrisers is already out there. The same guy did both of them. But you wouldn't be able to tell because he's so good an actor. Yeah, everything is British and Demon Device, and everything is California, SoCal, and Moonrisers, and he does it just great. So I'm excited about those. Want to push them, want to get them out there. And I hope that you talk it up. I mean, the best way to get books recommended is for people to recommend them to their friends. So hopefully you're talking it up. Moonrisers and the Demon Device are 99 cents for the ebooks. So cheap. How cheap can it go? Well, but we are, wow, we're out. We've done an hour. We've done a little over an hour. So I guess unless we have any last minute questions or comments, we're going to wrap this sucker up. Then I'm going to go to my email and I'm going to randomly pick winners, and you will have ducks and candy. That sounds like a fascinating weekend. I always talk about books. Thank you. We need it in this time. I'm used to doing like several events a month, and now to have nothing is just killing me. It's tough. So, I always appreciated when libraries and luncheons always had me come and be a speaker, and I really enjoyed that. And now that I don't have any of that, my mileage is down to 0 for the last 3 months. And I can't take that off my taxes. So that's a tough one. I lent the first Crispin to my cousin, a bibliophile, and she loved it. Did she ever give it back? That's the question. Thanks for all your books, and thanks for doing these events. Well, you're welcome, and thank you for coming. I really appreciate you coming to these. It's weird. I know this is like a radio show. Get used to that. Sitting here talking to myself. I actually am used to that. I don't know why this is so weird. I love these events. I love these events too. I'm glad that we can do this, that there is this technology. Imagine if this was 20 years ago. I'd be sunk, number one. So, of course, in exchange for me lending her the rest of it. Oh, I see. Okay. Well, you as long as you can get them back, that's what you need, Dana. So, nothing like loaning a book to someone and knowing you'll never get it back. Well, I enjoyed this. This worked. This is real easy on YouTube. I think it's great. I like having also events on platforms like this because a lot of people aren't on Facebook, so they don't get to go to the launches. So this was fun, and we will do this again. And I'm glad you came. Thanks, everybody. And if you still have leftover questions, just find me on Facebook. I love being able to talk to authors and telling them how much their work means. Oh, well, thank you. It means a lot to us when we hear that. I love getting emails from people. I love getting the reviews. It's always great. Thank you for coming, everybody. Now you've got the rest of your Sunday afternoon to enjoy. Thank you, everyone. I'm going to get to the prizes. I'm going to send them off. Bye-bye. See if this works when I turn it off. And